Um, yeah, people have been saying do this for ages, saying that Neil Peart, how smart a motherfucker Neil Peart is. Um, but I'm not sure if this Blockbuster sent me these two. But I know people have requested. I'm not sure if this is the one people have been requesting. But a few people have said check this interview out. But I'm not sure if it's this one or the next one I've got. But I have got two Neil Peart interviews. So if this isn't the right one, the next one will be. Um, and also, uh, I'll be doing more Rush in the week. The next Rush album, because someone quite rightly, like I said, you need to make me do it. And someone sent me a comment basically, saying it's time for some Rush, and yeah, it is. So that will be coming next week, maybe even a couple, depending on how long the album is. Um, but yeah, Neil Peart interview on the hour. Let's go. Every time. Let's go.
Nice to see you. I'm the boyfriend, George Strombolopoulos. This is a country that loves to celebrate its storytellers, but one thing we like to celebrate too are the other people that aren't that famous, even though they could be. For example, the drummer. And tonight, we've got a living legend in the business who's both a storyteller and a drummer. He has defined the scene in this country for 40 years, and without his band, the whole idea of combining art and literature with the energy of stadium, dare I say, prog rock, might never have happened. One of the most beloved trios in the history of rock and roll. No matter where from, people look to this band and go, oh my God. They travel the world. Where are you from? Toronto. They say two things, Drake and Rush. And Neil Peart doesn't do a lot of television, very graciously agreed to do it. Neil from Rush is on the show tonight. It's a pleasure to have him on. He's an accomplished author. He's got a new book about his travels on the open road. We'll get into that. Also tonight, a great new Canadian band. They're here to perform live. P.S. I Love You is on the show today. Neil Peart's on his way in. Here's his bio.
Neil Peart is the thinking person's rock star. As a drummer and lyricist for Rush, Neil has fueled the band's huge, complex sound and influenced the way it thinks. Over the years, he's referenced Greek mythology, Hemingway, and the novelist philosopher Ayn Rand. Pretty heady stuff for a rock band. And what a band. 37 years and still going. 19 original studio albums, more than 40 million records sold. So, here's the thing. He grew up in farmlands of southern Ontario. As a kid, he saw a film about a big band drummer, Gene Krupa. Being a drummer looked exciting, looked glamorous, and even dangerous. So at 13, Neil started taking lessons and got into rock drummers like John Bonzo Bonham and Keith Moon. In 1974, he joined a band called Rush. Then, after more than 20 years of success, the unthinkable happened. In 1997, in less than a year, Neil lost both his 19-year-old daughter and his wife of 22 years. Overwhelmed by loss, he went on a personal odyssey, a 14-month motorcycle trip across North America, through Mexico to Belize and back. He chronicled it all in a book. He went on a personal odyssey, a 14-month and his wife of 22 years. Overwhelmed band called Rush.
Lost his wife and daughter.
Then, after more than 20 years of success, the unthinkable happened. In 1997, in less than a year, Neil lost both his 19-year-old daughter and his wife of 22 years. Overwhelmed by loss, he went on a personal odyssey, a 14-month motorcycle trip across North America, through Mexico to Belize and back. He chronicled it all in a book called Ghost Rider. In all, Neil has published 5 books about his travels on the open road. The latest is called Far and Away, a prize every time. It's an intimate travelogue that spans 4 years in the life of an artist, a husband, and a new father.
Thank you. How are things?
Very good, thank you.
I'm looking forward.
Just enough projects to go on to be busy, but not go crazy.
That's right. It's a tough balance to strike, though, isn't it?
It is, and I learned part of the secret is one project at a time. You know, while we were off we were touring last summer, and then I worked on a book during the off season, as it were. And I'm working now on an instructional DVD, even as we rehearse, starting to...
For motorcycles or drums?
Drumming in this case.
Okay. I wonder about your relationship with drumming and how it's changed over the years, because you've done it so long, and drumming for Rush is it's not like you just do.
No.
I mean, there's some stuff going on there, right?
Yeah.
So, has your relationship with the instrument changed over the years?
Enormously so, in all those inner ways that might be boring to anyone else, but I feel them strongly, and it occurred to me lately that the band, even after all these years, 36 years, we're going through changes right now as individual musicians, and thus, you know, as a unit of musicians. And where we're going now is in all of us improvisationally. Really interesting that we've all gotten into that little area independently, and the little solo parts that each of us has during the show. I just listened to Geddy's bass part at the end of That Thing Alone, or Alex's acoustic part after my solo, and you know, everybody's just pushing it out there in a whole new way, and inevitably that's going to affect us when we get together again writing new material.
After all those years of playing together, when you're on stage and you look out and you see those two, do you see the same two guys you met a long time ago, or is it a different thing now?
Oh, the shared aspects. I always tell people the first day we met, the first thing we shared was a sense of humor. We started doing Monty Python sketches, you know, so having the sense of humor, if you share that, you share a bond, and I'm sure this is true for any relationship that anyone might have. If you share a sense of humor, there's a really good start to your relationship, and that's something that every single night on stage we have little exchanges, you know, and they're wordless often, and we just have to look at each other a certain way, or Geddy and I will play straight man to Alex, which is a natural, you know, role for us in the band, but those kind of things happen every day and every night.
You know, for people, have you watched the documentary about you guys?
No.
You haven't watched it? Is that a conscious choice not to relive all that?
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to watch a show about me.
I think is one thing that people who watch it would be really surprised to know is that early on, the relationship with Kiss, and people never really would have put Rush and Kiss together.
Well, yeah, we were an opening act for so long, and we had a really good relationship with the guys in Kiss and their crew, and we opened for Aerosmith like 40 times and never got a sound check. And I mean, Blue Oyster Cult, Ted Nugent, if you name any band from kind of the mid-'70s, we probably opened for them because we were an opening act, and then we'd start headlining small halls and still be opening shows, you know, in between. So we had that mixed bag for a long time, which really contributed to our balance, I think. You know, we learned a lot about character studies from watching other people. And some of the lyrics that I've written on the subject and thoughts that I've expressed on the subject of fame and celebrity are from witnessing how people like that behaved and handled it, and in turn how they came out.
Yeah,
you know,
you were on the road with Aerosmith and Kiss when they were really partying. Like madness.
Oh, casualties. I mean, Kiss were always a perfectly focused corporation. And in those days, I saw Gene Simmons' notebook of all the costumes for Kiss from their high school days. And him and Paul knew exactly what they were doing and how they were going to do it. But the softer-hearted ones, like Ace and Peter, you know, they couldn't play that role with that same cynicism, and they became damaged by it in a, you know, a tragic way, because they were such lovable people. And that's what you often see, and the drummer equivalent, if you think of the tragedies along the way, and I read biographies of Dennis Wilson or Keith Moon, for example, and just so sad because they were so loved as people, not just as drummers, but as people, and felt unworthy of that love. And you see that fatal flaw in them, and that in the public eye and in the portrayal of a celebrity's role, it has an even more confusing effect. So those are the kind of things that we saw early on that helped us.
Have you struggled with that at all? Like, just seeing the position that you've been put in?
Feeling constantly having to earn it, I think, it is a good motivation for it. You know, I don't take for granted that people just admire what we do, so whatever we do, they'll admire. No, you know, I feel like, in fact, this is very true. Every audience, I feel like we have to earn them. You know, that we have to earn their dedication and their expenditure of time and energy and money to be there every single time. You know, every show, and it's an old show business thing, but I really feel that you're only as good as your last show. And that's the one thing I do like about touring. If you have a bad one, you get another chance.
For sure. And you ride your bike from gig to gig, don't you?
Yeah, I have. It's part of an ongoing conspiracy to get out of the touring so-called life. And early on, it became like hide in a room and read books. And then in the 80s, I got a bicycle and then started traveling. On days off, I would ride from city to city if they were close enough, or go out on a day off and just go out in the country. And I started touring the art museums of different cities of America, because so many of those Midwestern cities you wouldn't expect. St. Louis, you know, Kansas City, Buffalo has a great art museum. Indianapolis.
The best architecture in North America is in Buffalo.
Very often, yeah. And it was an excuse to go for a bike ride on the day of the show. So that was nourishing for a while. And then the mid-90s, motorcycling gave a whole new scale to it. And I thought, I can do a whole tour by motorcycle. So, and did. So I have a bus and a trailer, basically. I sleep in a truck stop on the bus and then unload the bikes and just ride. And on days off, I can go to all the great scenic areas of America, or the small towns and back roads and the dirt roads and the mountain roads and all the wonderful scenery that America and Canada and Europe have to offer. And then last October, I bit off a little more.
I would love to do that. That's like a dream. Like, just to think of that. Touring, and then on your days off, you're just going and seeing the most beautiful things in America. Like, at some point, I would love to tour around, or like travel around America. Yeah, it would be fucking great. And like that, no, I mean like that. I don't mean like New York and all the kind of touristy things. I mean all the kind of little small towns and yeah. Yeah. Anyway, let's go.
Touring South America. As soon as I saw it, yeah, I thought, okay, well, I kind of divide adventure travel and business travel, and I've never been late for a sound check, even let alone a show. So I saw the South American itinerary, and 4 days off between Brazil and Buenos Aires. It could be done. It should be done. It must be done.
It can't be done.
But yeah, and then partway through, it's like, this was a really bad idea.
Because you're such good friends with the other guys, man, is it hard to break it to them and say, look, I'm not going to tour with you guys in the same way. I'm going to go on my own?
Oh, it was a relief, because we'd been sticking to traveling by buses then. Yeah. We all traveled together on the bus, and those guys were getting itchy to fly. So this was giving them wings to fly, really. I said, guys, I'm going to be getting a bus with a trailer and a motorcycle, so you can finally go off and fly like you wanted to, because I never liked flying as a way of traveling or a way of existing even. So, no, that was like most decisions I've remarked before, a three-piece band can't be a democracy. You can't have two against one. So everything that comes about is by consensus, and that's the beautiful thing in terms of the work that we do. Even what we're undertaking now, where instead of spending this whole year or more making an album, we thought, well, we'll record a couple new songs, then go on tour. Because there's a certain exigence. We all know we're kind of in our prime right now, at our peak musically, and feel it, and know that can't possibly last forever. So there's a bit of urgency. You know, I'm proud to say I'm 58. I'm a rock drummer that lived till 58. But
amazing, actually. In fact, when
okay with that.
When they just said, I forget what magazine, or somebody just did a recent poll, the best drummers of all time. It's Keith Moon, John Bonham, and you. So you're the only one alive of that group.
Yeah, and that's a happy state. You know, I'm like I said, the advancing years don't intimidate me in that way. Yeah. Just the fact, like you said earlier, drumming is so athletic, especially in this band. And the 3 hours that I play, what it takes out of me physically, and the aches and pains that are, you know, subsequent to that, are real, you know, and I just have to realize that no athlete can expect to maintain a prime, you know, infinitely. So just the fact that I've had it this long, and I still feel myself growing, like I said, in really exciting new ways, and physically a new command of the drum set. Even we're rehearsing right now for the tour's continuance, and even through the rehearsals, I really feel strong and smooth, the qualities that I most would have wanted to have when I was a teenager starting to play drums. I was thinking the other day, when I was at 17 years old or so, I went to see The Who at the old Coliseum playing Tommy. And I was with a bunch of friends and bandmates in a van, you know, as you do. And on the way home, one of the other guys said, do you think you could ever have that kind of stamina? I said, I don't know, you know, and I was laughing about that now, you know.
I think we got a picture from a similar, you may not have been 17. We have that picture, can we show? When you see this guy, look at that guy there. On drums.
That's about that time, yeah. That's in St. Catharines on James Street.
Now, that guy's got that scowl on his face. What's he saying to you right
there? The guitar player was a stern disciplinarian, and I always said his right foot was the ultimate time machine or metronome, and I was speedy. Yeah, I was very excitable, and I've talked lately about young drummers. See, they get excited, and they play a fill, and they speed up, and then they get tired, and then they slow down. Right. That's a young drummer's natural, you know, physical arc. So many guitar players, ironically, were really important in my development, but that's a good example there. And I still remain in contact with Paul Dickinson,
nice.
that is, and kid him about that, the scowl and the foot of doom.
What do you do if you love Rush, but you're not sure your girlfriend does? Neil's got an answer. Neil Peart, Anthropology, right after this.
So far, this is good. Yeah, this is good. Because I was thinking I might listen because I've got a book app thing. I was thinking I might actually listen to that book he wrote. I bet that's interesting. Because you can tell he's smart from the lyrics. Like they said at the beginning, Rush is not a band that has just, and I haven't even delved massively into their lyrics. So I'm still kind of in awe of the music, but the lyrics, even from what I've heard already, you can just, like they said, there's so much more to it, like Greek mythology and what's it, Iran, like who knows her, like she's a philosopher, a female, well, like a kind of philosopher, female philosopher, but she's really not someone that people just pull out the fucking blue. Do you know what I mean? It's like you need to kind of know your shit to even know her. Yeah. Or at least know to a certain extent. But anyway, yeah, let's go.
We're back here with Neil Peart. He's got a book called Far and Away. As a guy who rides motorcycles, every time you come with a new book, it's nice because we're trying to find just little tidbits of somebody else's experience on the open road. When you were a kid, did you read about people telling these sorts of stories? Is that what you...
Certainly early fascination with travel stories, but also on the practical side, I came late to motorcycling and just soaked up all the wisdom that I could find, the wisdom of the road. And the magazines often had articles on safe and strategic riding, because it's not really about safe in the sense of being cautious, because I always say be as safe as you can while still having fun. Right. And fun in motorcycling has a little bit to do with the adrenaline and the risk of it all. So strategy, I find, is so important. And at this point, with a couple of 100,000 miles behind me, I think so often of what if is my big strategy, and thinking for everybody. You know, never taking anything for granted. Actually, I learned from bicycling. It's a good bit of roadcraft for everybody. If you're going along a road, cars, look at the front wheel. Yeah. Not the car, not the driver. Always. But before anything happens in the lane beside you at 70 miles an hour or whatever, that wheel is going to move before anything happens. And little tricks like that I learned from bicycling. Actually, I think I learned periscopic vision from bicycling too. I used to bicycle a lot in Toronto or other busy cities all over the world. When we were on tour or recording, I commuted across London every day, across Paris every day by bicycle. So that's really good. That's really good strategy training.
Have you ever had like one of those like complete brain cramp moments? I did a 6,600 kilometer ride, and it was 50 yards from my place, and I crashed, like just right there, just because I let my guard.
It's common, and I have a Roadcraft adage, not surprisingly, for that. Fatigue makes you stupid.
No kidding.
Because I've had it at the end.
Make me stupid. Fatigue helps.
Well, yeah, that's strategy to outsmart yourself. Right. Because that's a big part of strategy, is making yourself smarter than you are. What would a smart person do now? What would a smart person watch for now? But yes, it's true that when you get to the end of a long, tiring journey, sometimes you click off a little too early, and I've had that too. Fort Smith, Arkansas, at the end of about 1,500 miles from LA at a 2-day ride, and coming in, oh, okay, I'm here, and then I'm wobbling along a sidewalk and flop over. You know, it's the same thing.
It's a nightmare, isn't it?
Embarrassing.
As you know, one of the greatest fears you have riding a motorcycle on the road is the things that you might run into, not the least of which is deer. What's it like to hit a deer?
Well, it's, of course, it's taken a lot of lives, and not to be taken by any means lightly. I was a bit lucky in that it was the hill country of Texas, and they have white-tailed deer like our ones here in Canada, but they're a slightly smaller breed, it seems to be. So I was just lucky that I hit it square on. Not so lucky for the deer, but I stayed upright and, you know, lived to fear another day, because now I'm that much more fearful of deer in deer country. Never ride at night again.
You saw it? What was it? Take me through the...
Oh, it's split second. It was, hill country is kind of like limestone bluffs and and oak trees and that. And there were deer all over the place, so we were going quite slowly, which is another good factor too.
Great. Okay, I want to rapid fire some questions towards you. Tell me about the Church of Worry.
When I was a little kid, that was my religion. I truly believed that if I worried enough about something, it wouldn't pass. Like if I was going to get caught for breaking something or telling a little lie or something, I truly believed that if I worried enough, it wouldn't happen. And that if it did happen, I hadn't worried enough. And it's exactly like prayer, right? If I pray enough, it won't happen. And if it does happen, I didn't pray enough.
That's fantastic. Russia isn't quite yet in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How do you feel about that?
That's how. No, it's funny.
Is that your thing?
Yeah, no, it's just funny.
How about a Russian? You obviously should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well, one would think, yeah.
How do we do this? How do we figure this out?
Well, like it doesn't matter to me, and the three of us have agreed on this, that it matters to our fans so much more. Yeah. So we'd almost like it for their sake, truly.
You have a really interesting relationship with your fans. I mean, after this long, your fans are essentially family.
Well, some of them we have in the course of year after year. I've made this joke in one of my books, looking out at the crowd, and then the three of us, we talk like, hey, see that girl? She's got a new boyfriend. And
well, speaking of, what advice do you have for Rush fans whose perhaps girlfriends aren't into Rush?
Oh, yeah, I've written a little bit about that, and I think it was during the Snakes and Arrows tour. We were playing 2 nights in London. Both nights, they must have given the tickets away to some connected people or something, but there was a real ardent fan there and his girlfriend who was so miserable. Either sat like this or with their hands over ears for the whole thing, and the three of us are up there playing our hearts out as we do every night and wanting people to love it. Sure. You can't, no one ever, I think, gets over that kind of, reaction right in their front of their faces. So I kind of wrote that if your girlfriend doesn't like us, please let her stay home or at least give her earplugs.
Right, thank you. We talked about the magazine that said you were you're the best living drummer. There's another poll that brings your lyrics into question. How did you feel when you read that?
Well,
they said that you weren't a very good lyricist, but I'm sure that obviously people disagree with it. But when you read that, how do you feel?
Yeah, you can't help but be stung. I don't think anyone that I would want to know would be above that, and it's actually a beautiful illustration. Another author, Tom Robbins, I was always a great admirer of his novels, and I loved the way they kept getting better and more adventurous every time. And there was one of his, I think it was Skinny Legs and All, that there was just a scathing review in the New York Times by a moron. So I got angry about it, and I wrote to Tom Robbins and said, look, as a longtime reader, I just want you to know that your readers are more than satisfied, and I love the way you keep progressing, etc. And he wrote me a really nice answer and said, I stopped reading reviews long ago because if I believed the good ones, I'd have to believe the bad ones. Right. And I took that so to heart, and I never read another review.
That must be kind
of so smart.
Have you ever written a lyric that, in hindsight, when you hear Geddy sing it on stage, you're like, nah?
That's a thing that comes up in, I don't know if anyone watches UFC, and in fighting, if a young fighter goes out there and say in his first few fights he knocks the person out, people will start saying he's a knockout artist, he's a knockout artist. So then he goes out there thinking, I'm a knockout artist, I have to be a knockout artist. And then he'll go out there and he'll get fucked up. So yeah, good and bad opinions of you are, they can both be detrimental. Yeah, let's go.
I could have written that differently.
Well, there are things you grow out of and become better than, and a lot of experiments. Let's face it, when our career being so long, I've said before, I wish really our first album was kind of Moving Pictures in 1981, because for the 6 years before that, we were experimenting. And there are times, I got into alliteration so crazy because I was studying the history of poetry, and I learned that there used to be no rhyme. The whole trick in poetry used to be alliteration, and just having as many words as you could that started with the same letter. So I got playing with that and had a lot of fun with it in even the previous records, but by then I learned how to use it. And it parallels our progress musically too. We got so excited about technique, the three of us. I mean, genuinely, like boys, like geeks. Yeah. And we would learn how to play in complicated time signatures, and we would have to do it because we could. Well, we grew out of that, and it became part of our arsenal then, and that's why you can kind of point at that time in 1980-81 when we gathered all of those forces with the confidence in songwriting and arranging. Arranging was a subtle art that we really had to learn, and how to how to use those tools and this fun of really playing crazy music, how to apply it to a musical aim.
You know, if you try to sum up a country based on the road signs you see on your road trips, one thing I notice in my travels across the states is that all I see are billboards for fireworks, for casinos, and for churches. And you've written about that as well, what you see. What do you think when you cross that?
Yeah, I kind of collect them with an open mind. The church signs particularly fascinate me because they are often so witty and clever. There's one that I'd love to quote that said in front of a church, "To err is human, but it can be overdone." And I thought that was the phrasing alone and the wisdom conveyed there. Some of them are really bright. And then other ones, it starts to become an assault on you. Like, what eternity do you prefer, smoking or non-smoking? You know?
It's almost offensive, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it becomes so. Yeah, they're just presuming that you think the way they do, and that's what becomes presumptuous in those pockets of the country that are so similar to each other. They just take it for granted that other people are the same. And I always think of what would happen if you see semis going down the road. You've seen this with big religious messages on the side, and if you think that was Islamic message from Muhammad or something from the Book of Abraham, with a big Star of David, that it wouldn't be quite so welcome on America's roads.
Not at all.
And that's the way you have to think.
There is. It's called Far and Away Prize every time. There are plenty of them in this book. Check it out. It's Neil Peart, everybody. Thanks for coming in, man.
Oh yeah, I'm alright.
Very excited about this next performance on the show. I've been watching this band for a bit. I love listening to this band. They're from Kingston, Ontario. They released their
Yeah, that was a good interview. I actually might read that book. I'm on the second Game of Thrones at the minute. I think when I get through that, well, that's definitely going on my list. That book he's talking about, well, the book he wrote. So that'd be interesting. Because it'd be interesting to read not so much the touring side of it, but what he actually, all the little towns he went to and the art museums and things he saw, and yeah, because that sort of stuff fascinates me. I'd love to do that. But yeah, I'm gonna have to check that book out. But yeah, that was a good interview. And I'll do the other one as well. And I've also got an hour one, I think, of Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, but not Neil Peart. So I'll do that too. But yeah, he come up with a few little, like I say, like I liked his idea of the motorbike and things you learn from different things in life, which you can apply and use, and it's like another way of thinking. Yeah, you can see, like I say, you can see he's very fucking smart just in how he thinks about things. But anyway, yeah, that's the reaction. Sweet.